All right, we're recording. This is the beginning of the show. Harold, thanks for joining me, man.
No problem, bro. Thanks for having me.
So where are you at right now?
So I'm in Riverside. My office is actually in Norco, which is like, I don't know, you probably wouldn't even make sense to explain where that's at.
Well, but that's the San Diego area, right?
It's more like it's actually like 2 hours inland from San Diego.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm closer to LA than I am San Diego. I'm about like 45 minutes out of LA County.
See how much I know. So you were close. You were close to where we were for the toast event.
I'm about like it was like probably an hour drive to get to where we were at in LA.
I got you.
Yeah.
So yeah, we met at the toast event, the Spark LA event. How did you get involved with that?
Um, my toast rep actually invited me. So yeah,
Okay.
my toast rep, Leanna. Um, and I guess like I had a video that I had posted or a few videos I had posted on IG, and I guess Leanna like got a hold of it and sent it over to um, I think it was Will that was running the event over there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess he wanted to like he asked if I wanted to be on the interview with Sean. So that's how that all happened.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
that the Toast Crew. I'll tell you, I've said it before on this show and like a couple other places. I thought they put on a great event. It's not easy to pull that kind of thing off. The way people were networking and flowing and talking, I don't know if that was like a West Coast vibe or what, but to me, it really stood out.
Nah, for real. That was probably one of the better events I've been to. Like I've been to, obviously more like bigger events, and that one was for sure cool, especially like for it being free and just like
Yeah,
everybody
right.
to come out to. Yeah, like they did their thing.
Yeah, it's such a great product, and I like they don't sponsor the show, although if they wanted to, I'm totally open minded. But I just recommend them because of all of their services and the stuff that I used at my restaurant. But then when I went there, I'm like, wow, these really are good people. So that's always good to know. They got good people behind a good product.
Facts.
So so talk to me, man. You have a pretty interesting story. So I would give you guys a little bit of background. Sean was there, um, filming for restaurant influencers. You were there. I was just kind of hanging out, and I was listening to your story, and I'd love to get into that. How you got started in the restaurant business. Where did this idea for this restaurant start for you?
Oh man, so to go back a little bit, I had no food experience whatsoever. I never worked in a restaurant, never the furthest I've been to working at a restaurant was filling out an application for Del Taco and never didn't get the job.
You didn't get the job?
Well, I think I might have got it if I could have got it. I think they wanted me to come in for an interview, but at that point I had already found something else. So
All right.
but what ended up happening was me and some childhood friends basically um, one of my childhood friends that got reconnected. We used to play basketball when we were in high school and stuff. And at the time, I was building e-commerce businesses, so I had a few different e-commerce brands I was running. And he was making creating his first restaurant called Mad Bun out in Chino, California. And so we just connected on just some entrepreneur type stuff like, hey, let's get some coffee, hang out, whatever, we'll talk. We had never talked business before, and so from there it was like kind of just we built a relationship and we talked about what I was doing, what he was doing, and I had two other childhood friends from when I was like lived in LA from when I was like 7 years old, and so we all knew each other. They ended up going to go work for him, and so basically what ended up happening was he started his restaurant, they were working for him, but they always had the idea of like starting their own restaurant as well. And so ended up basically just meeting up one night and was like, hey, let's create this restaurant concept. We have this idea. One of my partners, Christian, he had a culinary project and when he went to culinary school, and his project was an Hawaiian barbecue restaurant in
Hmm.
Cerritos, California. So that was like the idea. And so it was like, all right, well, let's go ahead and let's kind of build it around that. came up with the name inside of a bar. We were at a bar where we came up with the name. We came up with, I think we might have like drew out a logo or whatever, and yeah, we just like put together a basic menu. But one of the things that was crazy was like we had already had a potential lease on the table.
Oh
So like
boy.
we literally like signed, like we basically were like, oh, let's create a concept so we can go do this tasting. So we created that concept that day inside of the bar, and then literally went on to do the tasting like I think like a week after or something like that.
So you guys are at a bar, like hanging out drinking. You're
Yeah,
just like, and they came up with this. So this is literally like we just wrote some stuff down in a bar, and here we are now. We got 3 locations.
pretty much. Yeah, give or
That
take.
a lot of those stories don't end up like that. So I want to take it back a second. How did you guys decide? And you guys said you was throwing around this idea of Hawaiian barbecue. What a lot of times chefs want to be passionate about something. How do you bring something so unique like that to life? I mean, it's such a unique concept.
Yeah, so I mean, we all grew up on like L and Ono's Hawaiian barbecue. Like that was like the thing where we
Mm.
grew up. We grew up in Carson, California. So a lot of Islanders, a lot of Samoans, a lot of Filipinos.
Ah,
Um, so like we that was just something we ate already as like kids. And then my grandparents are actually from Hawaii as well on
oh
my
shit.
mom's
Okay.
side. Um, Not like native or anything, but that's just my great grandparents are from there. So like it's kind of already been in our, in our blood and our culture. And so um, the thing that helped a lot, and this is where my partner Mike came in, the one I originally met with, he really helped also put a twist on that, and that's one thing he's like really good at. So the whole idea was like, let's take something that's familiar, something we know that people have like
Yeah.
already experienced and they're used to it, but like let's add another like what we call a California twist to it to like just elevate it. So it's almost like it's fast casual, it's fast food, but it's like it's comfort food, but it's good food. It looks good, it looks appealing. It's not just something that's thrown together. So.
Yeah. So I guess that's just me. I wasn't familiar with a lot. I mean, my background is I was a chef for a long time, and I'm looking at some of these things. I'm like, I don't know what a lot of these things are, but I didn't realize that this cuisine was already you were growing up around this as it was. This is something you guys were used to.
Yeah, this is normal, man. Like, and you'll see, like, it's starting to kind of make its way to the East Coast, it seems. Like, there's spots popping up in, like, I've seen, like, Virginia, like, Florida. But, like, for the most part, it's like Onos and L you really only see in, like, California and Arizona. And
Yeah.
I think, like, now you're starting to see, like, more of them pop up in, like, Texas and areas like that, as they become a little bit more saturated and more diverse.
So tell me about the name. What's the name come from?
Yeah, so shoots, it's like a Hawaiian slang term, kind of just means like let's get it or like let's do it. But literally
Or
like literally it was like we're on Google on our phones, like, man, let's like try and come up with like a name. So we just
that,
started like looking up like different terms and like what would make sense, what would fit, and we are just like, oh shoots, like that's kind of cool. It's
that
simple,
works.
like, easy to remember. So we just went with it.
Nice. Now, I know. I mean, you guys were friends, acquaintances. How's that dynamic? Talk about that dynamic because I got a lot of stories about partnerships. I never went into business with a friend. I was partners first, became friends. How do you guys manage that whole dynamic? It's not easy.
Yeah, so like one thing going into it, that we were very intentional about was like let's really structure this thing like we're gonna be a corporation. So like none of this like, we're gonna just get in a room and try and figure out who's gonna make what decisions. It's like let's actually like set ourselves some actual roles and responsibilities and decide who's gonna be doing
Smart.
what. So we're not like always, jumping on like, hey, well, who said you're the boss, kind of deal. Like we
Hmm.
all came together and like made an agreement on like this is how it's going to be. And it didn't start out like that. It really started out with like us definitely picking like the wrong people to be in whatever position. Let's just kind of go with it. But then
Yeah.
like we had a lot of breakdowns in those moments. And so um yeah, it's just like a couple things is one like just being transparent. Like that's one of our like principles is like we got to be transparent. We're a family, so if there's any issues that come up, like we got to communicate it. And if you don't communicate it, that's on you. Like it's not on anybody else. And so, yeah, like don't get me wrong, it has its ups and downs. It has its you know,
Yeah.
miscommunications, especially on the lines of like, one of the hard things was like me and my partner coming into this thing as like entrepreneurs and me being the only one that had kids at the time and married. So like, there's just like different like just mindsets coming into this thing and that affected us a lot. But for the most part, it's like, we're boys, we've known each other for a long time and we know that we're just trying to build something big. And so just we don't have any egos really in the way.
That's it's so I told you in full disclosure, I ran over here from another podcast locally here, and these were two women partners, and they were like finishing each other's sentences, and they've been in business for so long, and I was literally just like, how the hell are you guys doing this? Because my restaurant partners, even when things were going good, we barely want to sit next to each other, but we made it work for the concept. So I'm always in awe. I always want to know how other people's make it work. But like, so you guys basically have clearly defined spheres of what you all handle,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
and and then you come together on certain things. Like, how do you? There's three of you, right?
There's four of us.
Okay. Oh, so now sometimes you ever have like 50-50, like, hey, I want this on the menu, I don't want it on the menu, like those dynamics, those things that you got to rely a lot on heavy communication.
Yeah, for sure. I think heavy communication and like also like just being honest with what you really want. I think some people jump into something, oh, I'll take, this percent, but it's like you didn't really want that. You just
Yeah.
didn't know how to speak up for yourself type deal. So
Yeah.
yeah. But we just yeah, I would say the biggest thing for us is that there's really not a lot of ego. Like we
That
just
helps.
and I think it helps a lot that like some of us were entrepreneurs and some of us weren't at the end when we jumped into it because it's like I feel like when you take four entrepreneurs and throw them in a room or like four like guys that are doing things at a certain level, then it is kind of like, well, I want to do this we should do it this way, we should do it that way, and like some of my partners are willing, like they understand, like hey, you've been through this longer, you know what you're doing, like so there's a lot more trust built up and a lot more
Mm.
like reliance on each other.
Has that dynamic changed over time? I mean, how long have you guys been in business?
Since So we started the concept, the idea of it in 2019. We opened our first location in September of 2020. So almost 3 years,
Oh,
3, 4 years.
yeah. So has the dynamic over time changed? Like, I'm sure it's taken some work to get to this point.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said in the beginning, so in the beginning when we first started, my whole thing was like me and my partner Mike, we were kind of like, hey, uh, my other two partners are Nolan and Christian. So they're the ones that are like really like they're cousins. So they
Mm.
came up with like a lot of the menu items, a lot of the operations. When we first opened, it was them in the store mostly. And when we first started, like the whole idea was me and Mike were going to be kind of like, not like silent partners, but more like, hey, we have a little bit of expertise. Mike kind of has just started his own restaurant, so he can guide and like, I have marketing and technology experience, so let me like, help wherever needed with, and then also like paperwork, business stuff, things like that. So it's kind of like, hey, you guys, this is your thing in the beginning.
Mm.
Um, But like as we really started going through it, and as I started really diving into the restaurant industry and just seeing like where it's going and how much growth is like coming into it because of everything going digital,
Hmm.
it was like I saw a massive opportunity, and I felt like we were maybe thinking a little too small going into it.
Mm.
And it was like, hey, it's time to think bigger. Like if we're gonna do this, like I feel like I hold the belief of like with the restaurant industry, it's like if you're gonna do it, you might as well go big because if you stay small, and unless you're doing like really big numbers, it's kind of hard for it to really be worth
Oh
your
yeah.
time, you know? So
And
yeah,
you
that's
had that
kind of like, oh no,
sorry,
go ahead.
you had that e-commerce background, so you had tech on the mind. How has what opportunities do you see? I mean, I think I know some that I like, but I'm always interested to hear because I just have done so many shows lately and we're talking about technology so much, and it's interesting each individual person thought on what technology is going to be like for restaurants moving forward. It just doesn't seem to be a consensus. I think not a lot of restaurant owners are comfortable with technology. How do you guys use it? Where do you see it playing a role in Shoots moving forward?
Shoot, in every piece of it, honestly.
Mm.
all the way from operations to from marketing to operations to customer experience. It has a piece in every aspect from hiring to onboarding. Um, I look at it as like it's a leverage piece for sure. It's intellectual leverage. Like at the end of the
Mm.
day, like we're talking about tools that allow the onboarding and hiring process to be easier, like to take less human interaction. Um, and so it's a convenience factor not only for who are our candidates, but it's also a convenience factor for us. Same deal with like getting feedback from, we use Ovation to get feedback from our guest. So it's like that's also a convenience factor for the guest, but it's also gives us data information that we need in order to make decisions. I think the biggest thing that's going to have a massive impact on the it's going to be a massive impact, but it can also cause struggles for those that don't necessarily have the technical experience. But like as data continues to get like consolidated and there's more integrations with each other, like I think it's going to create a lot of opportunity with the different tools that are available. But it kind of causes an issue as well because it's like, we're dealing with issues of um, certain softwares not connecting with each other or certain softwares decide
Mm.
to change their API and all of a sudden it breaks down all the other stuff. And it's like we're really in this delicate space where we have to be very mindful of like what we create, what agreements we sign, and how we move
Oh yeah.
forward because like I think a lot of restaurant owners are not prepared for that, and I've seen it in other industries. So it's kind of a
Yeah,
rabbit
it's
trail, but
it's interesting because I just, well, again, talk to a lot of people, and a lot of concerns around losing like touch with the guest. But it's interesting to hear you say that you think this actually helps us communicate better with the guest and bring us closer. Is that right?
yeah, I think, and like I said, it's using it as leverage of like, you know, how can it help you create more time as well for you to create more touch with the guest?
Yeah.
It's like if I can free up my cashiers from doing a job that they would normally have to do that would take them away from the guests, like let me use technological leverage for that so that now they can, spend more time with the guests. Um, if I'm able to get data from our guests through technology, that's going to help me give a better experience. So, like one thing I always say is like convenience and connection with the guest isn't really um does it really have anything to do with the channel and what it's coming through?
Hmm.
Like the convenience at Starbucks, a few years back was the drive-through, but now the convenience at Starbucks is the mobile ordering.
Yep.
Like now I don't even want to go through the drive-through. It takes longer than me to just
Yep.
go on my app and like plug in, my order. And it's
Yeah.
there always. I don't have to repeat it. Like you saved literally hours from my life. So
Hours.
yeah.
Yeah. It's. I think it comes down to that comfortability factor, but I think I'm with you. I think that it's ultimately there to serve. I've made the comment before that technology is undefeated, and I've been battled on that one. But I just think it's always moving forward. It's never perfect, and it's always adapting. And I think that's a huge thing for restaurants right now. Is like if you're not implementing some sort of technology, especially if you're trying to scale, I just don't know how you do it. There's got to be something in place there. It's just smart business. It's not nothing other than that. This business has been stodgy, right, for a long time, and I
Yeah.
understand that, but I think it's an absolute necessity at this point.
Yeah, it's about we got to create value. Like at the end
Yeah.
of the day, it's like wherever the demand goes, like you can either decide to fight it or you can adapt and accept it. But like if we know that this is what the people want now and
Yeah.
we just decide to say like no, I don't want to do that just because of our own ego or bias or whatever, then like at the end of the day, you're not serving the people. And that's what this whole thing is about. It's about us serving the people.
That's a great point. Yeah, I mean, how do you go like right now, how do you decide on what tech you're gonna bring in? I mean, there's so many options. I think Sean and I were looking at this. There's like 700 restaurant tech companies. How do you go about evaluating which ones are a good fit for you guys?
So the first thing I look at is one is my POS is like the main central hub because it's like at the end of the day, like that's where my main interactions with customers are going to happen. That's where the sales are going to happen.
Mm.
So like I build everything around that. Um, and so it's making sure that whatever tool that we're going to use, does it have a seamless integration with Toast. Um, Now that can shift, especially because I'm like starting to see that a lot of these things are starting to close up APIs and things like that. But
Hmm.
for the most part, right now, with where we're at, my main thing is just making sure that when guest data comes in through the POS, that I have a way of that information plugging in with other tools directly.
Yeah, no, because a lot, and you mentioned before too, the contracts, right? Like if you're not reading these contracts, you could cancel the service all you want, but if you're not if you're not using it and you try to get out of it, you could be liable for some cash there, right? I mean
Massive.
that's a real thought.
Yeah, and that's something that like, and I honestly think that the restaurant industry is going to shift. They're going to have to shift. Because like in e-commerce you don't really deal with that so much, like at
Right.
least like unless you're at like a massive enterprise level, but for the most part it's like everything's month to month, like you can cancel it whenever you need to. And the reason why is because it's like if I go set up, I have Toast and then I go set up this other platform, say Restaurant 365, and I have to go pay this a pretty large significant fee for all of my locations to be
Mm.
on it, and I'm on a year or 2 year contract, and all of a sudden their API breaks down. Like, well, how do I get out of this thing?
Yeah.
So it's either you gotta make sure that you have like definitely push back on agreements and get things redesigned now, understanding that the way technology is now, you gotta have your safeguards in place.
Yeah. Now, do you having been around the block a little bit with this stuff, for somebody who's maybe not so adept at this, what are some things that stand out in those contracts to you as being a problem?
Um, So honestly, like the biggest thing is these really long-term agreements with huge buyout clauses. Um, let's see, there was one thing recently. Let's see, what was it?
The
Oh,
APIs you said.
a lot of lack of SLAs, like service level agreements,
Yep.
where it's like, hey, like what are you providing when stuff breaks down, or if I need customer service, things like that. Like a lot of them will have very vague and like general SLA agreements that really gives them
Hmm.
an out when something breaks down. And like with
Interesting.
most tech company, like most e-commerce and tech and websites and things like that, like they have very strong SLAs. Um, and that's what I see really lacking still in like the restaurant industry is like, I need a promise. Like if this stuff
Yeah.
breaks down, you got to be able to either one, I need to know what I'm being credited back for when it happens, because if something breaks down, it affects my customer, like it affects my
Yeah.
guest, and I could lose a guest for life,
Oh
and
yeah.
one guest could be worth, $500, $1,000, and it's like, but you're telling me that, hey, we're just gonna chalk it up as, hey, sorry, we messed up, and
Yeah.
it's like, no,
So SLAs, people, folks, you guys gotta read your SLAs. I didn't even know what that was until right now. So
yeah, and a
appreciate
lot of them won't
that
even have an
understanding.
SLA.
Yeah, that's huge. I remember when we had, I think when iPad POSs first came out, we had this company called POS Lavu,
Hmm.
and it was like, I swear to God, when we called there, it sounded like just like five guys in a room, and I was like, these is like some college kids, they're making this work, and I feel like they were just basically like the POS would go down because somebody like tripped over an extension cord. I was like, this shit is something. This is working good, but when it's not working good, and yeah, you definitely, because the customer doesn't give a shit. Like your POS doesn't work, fix it, right? So
Right.
it's just bad. That stuff's got to be reliable. That's a good point.
Yeah,
So I
man.
want to ask you, you got three
Oh,
locations, right? You just opened your third.
yeah, we just opened our third, opening two more this year.
So how do you manage the finances of three units, and how what KPIs do you guys really track? I mean, anything other than the traditional KPIs that really help you ensure profitability?
Man, but I'll be honest, like that's something we're like struggling with right now to get a hold on as we grow. More because it's like we're trying to get we're really having to also teach our managers how to like look at the business as an owner as well.
Mm,
Um, but right now, sales, labor, food costs, I mean those are the three KPIs. But the other KPIs I look at is I look at our there's two KPIs I look at. I'm sure other people look at this, but um So I call it customer experience, and then
Mm.
the other one is team experience. So we'll track like how is our team actually responding on like 7 shifts. They'll give like a rating. So we're actually starting to really push like, hey, give us an honest rating on how you feel, because I want to know like what's the
Ah.
team morale like look like on a weekly basis. So every week we'll review that. Like, and that's actually the first one I review. So like, what's the team morale look like? And
Mm.
then the other one is the guest experience. So the things I look at for that is ovation. Uh, how many surveys are we actually getting in percentage wise compared to our sales? So I'm looking at that because that's going to tell me, one, are we actually letting people know that they can take a survey and
Mm.
give us information? Um, and then I'll look at how many of those surveys we got, what the rating is on them, and then I'll
Mm.
look at our weekly review ratings on like Yelp and Google as well. So those are the top two, and then after that, I'll go into like sales and labor and food costs.
Interesting. Now, how do you handle? I mean, I guess my first question would be, what is so these? You have 3 units. Are you bouncing around these units all day, or are you more like higher level, kind of just looking at the business from a different angle, focus on different things than the day to day?
Yeah, the latter. So definitely high level for me right now. Um, really trying to lock in like supply chain, lock in like that's the big thing right now is getting our supply chain locked in, getting a solid like broad line distributor, so that we can really start scaling. Also trying to get all of our we're really trying to get everything co-packed right now, so we don't have to put everything inside of prepping inside of the store is heavy right now.
Right.
We're trying to lock in all that. And then my partner Christian, he's our director of operations, so he basically oversees all the managers right now. And deals like with the vendors, things like that. Um, so yeah, we usually visit the stores like maybe once a week right now.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have weekly meetings as well. So we have a weekly meeting with all of our managers, and the owners are on it currently. Um, Meeting with my director of operations, usually once or twice a week as well. Um, and then yeah, I mean that's for the most part. One of our owners is running one of the stores as well right now.
That's
So that's
good.
kind of good too, because it also gives us like a touch on like, what to experience there. And he's like able to give feedback to the other stores and whatnot. But yeah,
That's yeah. That's key to have him there for that. I mean, so much of that stuff that I've experienced in my locations was if something's going wrong in the restaurant, you got to look at yourself, like as an operator, like you got to check your shit. You tell staff all the time, like, check your shit at the door. You got a hard day. I need you to come in here with some hospitality. But a lot of times, owners, I feel like, are not doing that, right? How do you go about staying motivated and inspired for this brand every day? It's not easy, right? Especially when things are going tough.
yeah, man. We just had a conversation about that today. Um, so one thing is like always bringing it back to like why are we doing this thing? And that's to inspire people. We're trying to inspire others to have impact in this world. So it's always bigger than what we're going through and what issues we're facing. But also just reminding each other that we're family. So like one thing I've been really big on lately with the team is like language. Like how do we like what's like the frequency of language that we operate on? Like do we tolerate excuses? Do we tolerate,
Mm.
like just having a pity party and things like that? Or do we call each other out lovingly, obviously? Because I feel like sometimes it's hard to like tell somebody like, hey, um, you're making excuses right now. But it's really only hard to do that when it's like they don't know that you love them, or they don't
Right.
know that like you got their back. And so um yeah, just like we stay in communication. That's the biggest thing I would say is like we have a touch point every week just to make sure like, hey, let's just at least see each other's face,
Yeah. Right.
like, and let's just see where we're at and like be honest. And sometimes we have issues, but at the end of the day, it's like every once in a while we have a meeting where it's just like, yo, let's just be real right now. Like,
Yeah.
what's really going on? Because I can tell that someone's not sharing something, and like we need to
Yeah.
talk it through.
That's good to have that time, like sort of like let's just get this out on the table. That's a big
Yeah,
part. I mean, you mentioned before you have kids. How many kids do you have?
3.
Ooh, how old are they?
A 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old. They're all about to age up, or a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
One to turn three. They're all going to age up in like the next 2 months.
Yeah, man. So how do you go about managing your work life with three kids at home?
Man, that's I'm still trying to figure all this
Yeah.
stuff out, man.
I love it's so refreshing because everybody says the same thing. Like I'm always hoping somebody like, all right, here's how you do it. Get ready. I'm gonna tell you how to do it. But nobody fucking knows. Nobody has
Yeah,
any
no
idea.
one knows that shit, dude.
No.
Like, I mean, because think about it, man. Every year they get older,
Yeah.
so it's like it's a whole nother thing now. I mean, unless if I was to tell you, hey, my kids are 22 and 30 and 32, and they're all in school now and whatnot, it'd probably be a different conversation. But like, next year is probably going to be a whole nother. It's a new schedule. It's new sports that they're playing in. It's everything's shifting. So
Yeah. It's like literally with the kids. I have a 15-year-old and my wife is pregnant, so we have a little bit of a gap here. But I'll tell you what, it's like things just move fast, right? Like what they're into in the morning, they might not be into at night. Something that was
wow,
happening this weekend now is not happening this weekend. It's
yeah,
so much to manage. I think it always goes back to me. Like I remember Danny Meyer said, like you better learn how to surf if you're going to be in the restaurant business because that's what it is. And I think
mm.
that the family life pertains to that. You don't know what wave is coming next. You better just get on your board and make it happen.
Man, I love that. That's for
Right? I
sure.
mean, that's it.
Yeah.
So what would you say up until this point? Because like, this I personally feel restaurant concepts that are at 3 units are at a pretty much like an inflection point, right? Like what are we gonna do? What are we gonna continue to grow? Are we gonna go corporate? Are we gonna go franchise? How do you envision this ultimately ending? What's the end game for Shoots?
It used to just be exit. Um, the ultimate goal originally was $100 million exit. And the way that happened was like I was meeting with one of my mentors and he's like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I mean, I don't know. I think I want to sell the thing like eventually. And so it was like, well, he was like, well, how much? And I was like, I don't know, maybe 100 million. Like that would be good. And
Yeah.
so then very next morning, one of my friends, and I would also call him a mentor, like sent me two books. He sent me a private equity book, and he sent me another book called The $100 Million Exit.
Yep.
And I was like, oh shoot, okay, well that sounds like confirmation for me. So, so, but I learned that like going through this, that one of those reasons was just because like I was thinking too small. Like I was
Mm,
thinking in my head of like this business is hard, and I was operating out of lack, which it is hard, don't get me wrong, but like I was operating out of like a lack mindset, that where it was just like, what do I do to just get out of this thing, you know?
mm,
And now my mind has really shifted to where it was like, one thing we never really sat down and did when we first started this thing was we never really sat down like with the team, like with the owners, and just like hey, what do we really really want, like what are we really really shooting for here, like we started the thing in a bar like, so it
yeah.
wasn't like a conversation of like, hey, how do we like what's our real ultimate intention with this thing. And so recently, like, we really like sat down, we had conversations about it, like we had meetings, like some of our partners cried, like,
Mm,
and we were just really dialing in on like, well, what do we really want to do. And like I feel like when you do that, when you really start thinking about like, okay, what's the real intention here, what do we really want to serve, and how many people do we really want to serve, and get that vision down, now it's like $100 million seems like nothing.
right.
So now it's kind of like,
Hmm.
let's just like dial this thing in, and just um get as many people around us that we can inspire, as many guests, as many other partners, our vendors, our team. Let's get as many people as we can that we can continue to inspire. And as we do that, like as long as we give value, like this thing is going to grow. And so it's just locking in those things, and then hey, maybe it's franchising. I'm pretty sure I want to keep it owner operated, but if I want to be in a place where the opportunities are now are more or less limited than what they are now.
It's it's such a tough question to answer when you're like, you know, you want to get to a certain spot, but you're in it day to day and you can see what's moving ahead with other businesses and the economy and the restaurant industry. But like, how do you approach like the shifts and all these different changes that are happening. I mean, we talked about surfing just a second ago, but when you're focused on this, an exit strategy, and I feel like you're going to be pretty flexible. What does it mean for you to be flexible right now as a restaurant owner?
Um, Set the vision, set it big, and just just go 100% with what you know. And that's just like what it like because at the end of the day, like there's decisions I made last year where I'm looking back like, man, why?
Yeah.
Like why did I do that? Like what was the that doesn't even make sense now, you
Mm,
know? And so and that's what happens in technology when technology comes into something too. Like things change really fast. And so we got to be able to willing to pivot. So I think for us it's like really just focusing on the principal stuff, like, what our character is, who we are, what we stand for, and just continue to reinforce that and just continue to build momentum and serve people. And like, you know, not we're not doing too many strict plans, like strict like here's what we're gonna do this week and next week and then 2 months down the line, and it's just this is the goal. That's it. Like the goal is for us to serve as many people as possible,
hmm
and however that happens, like we're just gonna be open and allow God or the universe, whatever you want to call it, to step in and do what's necessary to help us.
Yeah. I think it's again, so many different dynamics in the restaurant business, which what makes it so difficult. You have to have a passion for what you're doing and a vision. If you could tell, so many people who listen to this show are startup restaurants or one-off operators thinking about expanding. Starting with the startup group, what are you like top two pieces of advice you would give to somebody starting a restaurant today?
Um, find a mentor. For
Yeah.
sure, find somebody that you can like learn from, that's done it. Even if they're just a step ahead of you, even if it's just like, hey, they got two locations, whatever. Like, just go talk to someone that can help you. Like, like the book Who Not How really speaks to me a lot. Like, and that's been like, um, the principles of that book have really helped this past couple years. But for the most part, it's just
Which
like
book was that?
Who Not How,
Mm-hmm.
by Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan.
Okay.
Um, but the whole idea is like everyone's always asking the question how, like how do I do something? And
Mm.
that's not the question that you want to ask, because how it creates stress. It leads to depression. It leads to you procrastinating and things like that. But when you ask the question who, now there's opportunity in that. There's like there's motivation in that, because at the end of the day, that means you can find someone. It's no longer on you to figure out the how. And so, yeah, I would say like that'd be a big piece, is like think through like who are the people that could actually help me right now. Stop trying to figure out what permits do I need. I see that a lot in the restaurant industry. Like it's like, oh well, I want to serve beer. Well, what do I do? I don't know. Do I get an alcohol license? Do I have to get this permit? Do I have to get this paperwork? Like what licenses do I need? And it's like, you're one person away from like getting all of your answers. Um,
Right.
so I'd say like, yeah, that'd be the first thing, is like seek out mentorship. Um, and the next thing is like, and this isn't for everybody, but like always just put your back against the wall.
Mm.
Like when like I said, literally when we signed the lease for Shootz, we didn't even know where the location was going to be. Like we we had like a general idea, like it's going to be in Orange County. Okay,
Mm.
cool. We signed the lease. We didn't know what we were doing. We knew it was in a food hall. I think we saw some renders, but we didn't do much other research or anything like that. But what it did was, now it's like, hey, we got this lease signed. Like we got to figure this out.
Yeah. Wow, that's scary.
you know? Yeah, it was, but like it's just there was something about it where it's just like, I feel like when you have one the mentor, and then you have this like, hey, it's kind of like no choice, we burn the bridge. You really start to learn how strong you are, and you
Mm.
figure it out.
That's it's that to me signing the lease without the concept is that is I'm a restaurant real estate guy, so that scares the shit out of me. How have you? I'm assuming your real estate strategy has adapted since then. Tell me a little bit about what you guys are looking for in real estate.
Um, so lately our first locations have all been in like food halls. So, because that's what worked for us in the first one. Um, but I definitely want us to find a brick and mortar location. Probably after these next, because the next two opening are also going to be food halls. Um, so after that, we're probably looking at, like 1,200 square feet, um, brick and mortar location in like like a family, like saturated area.
Hmm.
So, more residential things like that. All the other ones, we want them to be in like food halls, like urban areas where it's just like tons of traffic and things like that.
Yep.
But like I think with our location, we would kill it in like a, you know, nice 12, 1,300 square feet in a family residential type area. Um, because we know we do a lot of catering and things like that, and that's the type of food that we have. So it's going to be a different shift for us. Like, our second and third location were both second gen locations. So they
Yep.
were kind of like in like food halls type of locations, but much smaller than the current one we're in. But but they were second gen, so we kind of had to test like, all right, well, how do we actually market this thing like, not being inside of the whole like grand opening phase
Right.
of a food hall. So that's going to be like the test for our proof of concept, and then from there, I think we'll really dial in like, okay, what's our actual like real estate strategy of like what do we really need to look into? Where's all the data points and whatnot? But right now, we've like really piggybacked off of our uh, um, the developers that we're currently working with, which is where the other food halls are. All the food halls that we're in are all built by the same developers.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's a big lesson. Like, because I sometimes you have groups that are like considering one spot versus another, and to me, I'm always like, look, if you get with this group, more national expansion strategy type style, but you're going to be on every one of their plans, whether you're in that location or not. It's going to ultimately be better for you for other people to be seeing you in different spots. I mean, talk to me about that relationship. Are you happy with that dynamic?
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, like, I really loved the first food hall we went into, and that was actually their first food hall that they had built.
Hmm.
So it was kind of like, they had done some other projects and whatnot, but like this one was like, the whole idea of it, where it was at and everything just didn't really make sense from the outside looking in. But it like killed it, blew up. It was probably the best, in my opinion. It's one of the best food halls. It's the best food hall I've ever been to.
Nice.
Um, and so from there, like, we love that group. We love the people that built it. We've built a good relationship with them. Um, and they're honest, they're good people, and so every project that they've now like that they're working on, so the next two that we're in was also by them. Like it has the same like spirit in it in a sense, like where they're
Yeah.
putting them, how they're building them. They all have the same name, um, which is called Rodeo. So like the one we're in like right now is Rodeo 39. The other one's called Rodeo X, and then the next two they're building is called Rodeo at River Street, and then the Rodeo 79. So it's based off of like the street names basically.
Okay.
So yeah, it's the same type of concept essentially in each one. So I feel like it should have the same spirit, the same type of people coming through it. So
Yeah. I think it makes things a little easier for you, right? You get that familiarity. They can help you. They know what you want in terms of the space. You don't have to have a different conversation with somebody every time you're opening up a new location, a different contractor, a different architect, a different. So I imagine that as you kind of scale right there, that's a big help. That's a great strategic move, I think.
yeah, and they're doing the research too. It's like they're looking and
Yeah.
seeing what's working, what's not,
Yeah,
where they
exactly.
could put these things.
Exactly. All right. So, look, I don't want to keep you all day. I have three questions I like to ask every guest at the end of the show. So, if you're ready, I'm going to let them rip and then we're going to sign off. You guys just let me know where everyone can find you and all that fun stuff.
All right.
All right. So, here's the first question. Me and you are traveling. We're like overseas somewhere and our phones die and we got to reconnect because we got to get back to the airport. I got to go find you. Where am I going to, what type of eating, dining, cocktail establishment am I most likely to find Harold?
Ooh,
Like, remember, like, oh, he's gonna definitely be in that spot.
what kind of food you said?
Yeah,
Or
like,
like,
is it a coffee shop? Is it a fine dining place? Is it what kind of place would I be?
you'll probably find me at like a Thai restaurant.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
You like
which is
Thai food.
actually where we started the the bar we started our shoot then.
Nice. All right. Okay. So next one is you could have dinner with any three people in the world, alive or dead, fictional or real. What three people are you going with, and what restaurant are you going to?
Ooh, animal restaurant. Okay.
I
Oh
know.
man.
Yeah, it's a hot seat question. I told you. I already warned you.
Okay, Steve Jobs. Um, and we're going to. Are they all three at different restaurants?
No, you three people you're inviting them to dinner at this one spot for one meal.
Oh, okay, okay, all right. So Steve Jobs, um, Jesus, and ooh, oh man. hmm I'm gonna go with
Can be anybody. Can be
Biggie
anybody.
Smalls.
Oh man, that's a good one. So Steve Jobs, Biggie, and Jesus.
Yeah.
And where are you going?
Um, Maestro's
Where's my is that a local restaurant to you?
Steakhouse. They
Nice.
have a few like it's an upscale steakhouse in a few different states.
Nice. Okay. All right. And last question is what's the one singular thing that you would do differently in opening shoots? If you start over
Um,
today, what's one thing you would do differently?
hire a kitchen architect.
Oh yeah. Shoo.
Yeah.
That is, I tell you, I'm so glad you said that. That's a real thing. Because when I first learned that you could hire somebody that could design the kitchen and put all the equipment with the model numbers and everything in there for you to just hand over to the company, I was like, what? That would have saved me like 6 months of trying to plan this out on my own.
Yeah, man. That and we had like huge output issues where it was just like, man, like we're stuck at this amount of money because literally we have bottlenecks.
Yeah.
So
Because of the layout.
because the layout, yeah. And
Wow.
not only just even the kitchen, I would even just say the whole space. Like the food hall we had was 600 square feet, and we
Hmm.
literally had like 300 square feet of it was like front of the house. But it
Oh,
was like in a food hall, so it's
tight.
kind of like, do we really even need a front of the house?
Yeah, right.
So
So,
yeah, we had like this
uh,
case where it was like we couldn't make more than $800 an hour, like no matter how much we tried.
right. All right, cool. All right, so anyone in Southern California, tell them where to find you and social media and all that stuff.
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at Harold I Walters. Same thing on TikTok. I think LinkedIn as well have the same username. And yeah, I follow Shoots at shoots.official, Instagram and TikTok as well.
Your personal content is great. Do you edit all that stuff yourself?
No, I have an editor. Yeah,
Smart. Oh, it looks great. Well, cool,
thank you.
man. Thank you so much. I'm glad we met. Glad we had a chance to do this. And I look forward to getting some of this. I've never had Hawaiian food, so next time I'm out there, I'm gonna make Sean take me out for some Hawaiian grub over at Shootz.
Hit me up, man. Let me know.
Absolutely. Harold, thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Appreciate you to go.
Take care.
All right, peace.